Okay, first up this week in the podcast is going to be Dungeon Core Online Remasters, book number 1, written by Jonathan Smits. It is 417 pages, $4.99. It's available on Kindle Unlimited, and here's the author's description. James thought he would be just another adventure on the world's most anticipated dungeon-delving VRMMORPG. But when he logs in, he soon finds out that he won't be diving in the dungeon, he will be creating it. Pretty awesome, right? At least that was what he thought when he boldly chose random as his dungeon type. Then he summoned his first snob, a fearsome, bloodthirsty, demonic chicken. Still, demonic farm animals are the least of his worries. The person who is supposed to be teaching him the ropes is a weirdly advanced AI pixie who drinks too much and is overly fond of gambling. Oh, and some mysterious figure seems to be watching and judging his every move, so signing that NDA is feeling like less and less of a solid choice. Either way, James is up for the challenge, even if it means building a dungeon like kamikaze sheep and rage cows, unhygienic pigs, and yes, Dickens. At least his next randomly selected mob can't be worse, right? Also, Leonardo says this is a revised, edited, and novelized retelling the popular Rare Robe web series Dungeon Core Online by Galax. Okay, this is a pretty straightforward dungeon core story. It is a demonic farm theme. It's an online serial story compiled and edited, and as such, it's essentially kind of a slice of life story for the most part. Especially the beginning, that's a little heavily front-loaded about game mechanics and details and the dungeon stuff. So much so that about 20% of the novel, that first 20%, about 80 pages worth, is just the main character getting into the game, becoming a dungeon core, and figuring out his dungeon build before the adventures actually show up. So you don't actually see the adventures coming in, tackling the dungeon until 80 pages into the story. So just be aware of that. But after that point, it really is something people are getting familiar with as far as like, adventurers come in, they tackle the stuff, they survive or they don't, and the dungeon core advances and trains and it unlocks new monsters, and there's a whole like detailed, well thought out system here that people who like dungeon core stories are going to be really familiar with. The thing I think that it's going to set this thing apart, and either you're going to like it or you're going to really not like it, is the sense of humor. There's a ton of like jokes and punny jokes and humor and gaming references and word naming jokes. There are little bit of authors mentioned here left and right. And you know, it just is what it is. If you like that sense of humor and it makes you laugh, you're going to really like this. If the jokes make you groan and you don't, you're probably going to like this. And again, that's the thing that's probably going to be a deciding factor for you. For me, I had a good time with it. I did like the fact that eventually, about 70% in, there is a kind of a plot that shows up eventually. And I was like, oh, wait, I was not expecting any kind of plot. And I was kind of okay with that. This kind of bumped it up a little bit for me. And then I could see, oh, there's something to the series besides just dungeon design, dungeon build, adventurers come and recycle. There's a minor plot line with like a real life school thing, but it really isn't worth it to me. Like this other line showed at the same somewhere. It's a little more like, oh, okay, here's some backstory. Here's something for the series to develop. It doesn't really develop in this particular novel very much, but it is set up as like, oh, this is a thing that's going to recur in the next book, and we're going to develop it later. And I was like, okay, at least with something to look forward to as far as a bigger plot line. For me, it's a good slice of life dungeon core story, and I was okay with that. Give it a score of 7.6 out of 10. That's Dungeon Core Online Remastered Edition, book number 1, with a score of 7.6 out of 10.